Mum Winnie Madikizela-Mandela was a pillar of strength to many and had an impact as the mother of the nation on many people, not only in South Africa but internationally as well. She dedicated her life to the fight for the reduction of poverty, the abolishment of racial injustices, as well as the struggle for gender equality. To reflect on her life, we are joined in studio by Ayanda Dlodlo, who is the current Minister of Public Service and Administration. Minister, it's so nice to see you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good to see you too. Thank you for inviting me.
What did Mum Winnie mean to you?
You know, it's difficult to sum her up in a few words. And I think the movies and the books also don't do justice to the woman that she was. But what she meant, and I've always said, was that she was a very tenacious woman. She spelled out what it is that selfless service is all about for us to all understand. And I think that's the life for some of us that would forever want to emulate, a life of selfless service to the people.
You looked up to her so much. I mean, she must have been, we all constantly call her a mother figure, but I don't think there's another way to describe her, because to a lot of people she was a mother figure, but for you personally?
But I think she was, as you rightly say, she was a mother figure to everybody, even those that had never experienced her at a personal level, that have experienced her in some other way or the other. To me, she was that mother who would, as I've said before, call us to her house when she was unhappy with certain things, but sometimes just to sit and have a chat and talk about politics, talk about your own personal experiences in life, what upheavals or joys that you're experiencing at any particular time. So she gave you that space to share in your life what it is that you would have wanted to share with someone older.
Yeah. And to cook. And to eat her food.
Yes.
Because everybody who sat here on this couch has said that she would invite you to her house for her food and
but
her
I was
cooking.
Unfortunately one of those that she never cooked for.
Really?
She always wanted just to talk. Oh. And I was fine with that.
You were good with that?
I was fine with that.
I think I would rather...
It really did mean a lot to
I would
me.
rather eat her knowledge than her food as well. I think that you came out richer for this. I mean, she used her skills as a public servant to better the lives of many women, and particularly women in different communities, especially in Soweto. And going back to Brunfort, and Palesa was reminding me as well that she even built a school in the Free State for young children as well. You know, when we look at public servants and the lessons that you, being a public servant yourself, can learn from her, what is it?
You know, she was a public servant at some point in her life, but that evolved to something much greater, that of being a servant of the people. Yeah. Because she started off as a social worker at well, it was Baragwanath Hospital at the time. So she was literally part of the civil service. And there is no blemish in her story at that time, none at all, which means that she did the best that she could with the resources that were placed at her disposal and the time that she put into her work. She evolved over time really and became a servant, literally a servant of the people, where she would be everywhere that our people were. When there was strife in an area, Mum Winnie was the first or the second person to be there. When there was a bereavement somewhere, Mum Winnie would always be there. When there was time to emulate other leaders and not just herself, Mum Winnie was always there. So she shared in the trials and tribulations of our society. She shared in the joys when we celebrated December 16, which was MK Day, June 16, Youth Day, August 9, at a time where there were not public holidays. It was still during in our cause of struggle. And she was always around the people. Yeah.
I mean, you talk about the MK days, and you yourself, and I think viewers very much so know this about you, that, I mean, you were a young female MK soldier in exile, and I'm sure you would hear the stories of what was happening to Mum Winnie back in South Africa, and you talk about her being in the communities. She was at the coalface of everything. I mean, I think she went through the abuse that a lot of people may have missed out on, being out of the country, being in jail, but she was there in the streets with the community, seeing what they were going through, experiencing it personally, whether it be abuse of all kinds, being thrown into to solitary confinement. I mean, hearing these stories, I can only imagine, made you want to just keep on the fight from a distance and from closer.
Believe me, Leanne, she was a pillar of strength, literally, to all of us in exile. We saw liberation through her eyes. We knew that one day we will overcome. And overcoming would have meant that she's in the forefront, leading us to the union buildings. And we would have conversations about this illustrious, towering figure. We knew that we had our leaders in Robben Island, but the one person that always touched our lips was the word Mama Winnie, because we knew that at that point we could rely on her to keep the struggle inside South Africa alive. And, you know, there were few people that were always on the lips of MK cadres. It was in South Africa, it was Herikwa, apart from the leadership that was in, because we knew very little about the leadership that was on Robben Island until there were leaks on letters and stuff like that, or a book had been leaked. So we would get to know what is going on in there, or someone had been released that information would be available. But that was not something that we saw every day. But with her, she was in our face, in our minds, in our hearts on a daily basis. She and Herikwa, by the way, we looked up to them. Alan Bosak. We looked up to those people. We used to call them fighting commissars. We used to call some of them fighting commissars, but Winnie Mandela was more of a commander, wrapped up as a commissar as well, because she always led from the front.
Yeah. You know, one of the questions I need to ask you, and I think what we, and I said this last week during one of my interviews with our numerous guests that we've had in, is that I think one of the benefits of Mam Winnie's passing is that we're truly beginning to dissect her life, and we're truly beginning to understand the truth behind Winnie Madikizela-Mandela. And there is so much more to her than meets the eye. And finally, her story is coming out and it's being told. Which leads me to your question. I mean, you being an MK soldier, going through what you went through, coming back to South Africa. And one thing that Mam Winnie didn't make a secret, it was very hard for her to reconcile and very hard for her to forgive. And she was vocal about that, and I can understand that, particularly coming from a white perspective. But maybe from your mouth, what was it like? I mean, what is it like for you still? Do you feel that reconciliation? Do you feel that there are still so many open wounds that have never, ever been allowed to heal?
I hope at some point Leanne will be able to heal these wounds, because the story of Winnie Mandela has brought those wounds to the fore once more. Simply because everybody now is talking about this wonderful woman. I mean, save for a few scoundrels. Everybody is talking about this wonderful woman, this woman that meant a lot to the South African body politic, this woman who meant a lot to us at grassroots level. A story that should have been told in her time when she lived.
I agree.
Because she was one woman who lived with a lot of pain, with a lot of anger. But at the same time, she was willing to extend a hand of friendship and warmth. But we still continue to judge her, and to judge her very harshly. And I saw one video a few days ago where she was actually thanking someone for honoring her in her time, and she was saying that, I just hope that we would do this to people when they're still alive and tell them what and how much they meant to a community, or they meant to society at large. And she never demanded to be treated in a particular way. But if you read the preamble of the Constitution, that preamble should tell us all how to treat those who are suffered for the injustices of our past. Because we do not give enough credence to the pain, the humiliation, the degradation, and the continued bitterness that some of us still harbor today. We mask it in so many ways because we all want to move forward. We mask it in so many ways because we want better for our society. But if we were to project what we feel inside and still harbor inside, South Africa would not be a beautiful place. And that's why when we talk about the land question and all these nasty things resurface, you want to refer people back to the preamble of the Constitution. Because at some point we need to be saying, this myth of a rainbow nation does not exist. We're still looking for unity. We're still looking for reconciliation. But how do you reconcile with a people or a section of society that still holds you in very low esteem, that treats you with disdain, that does not look into the pain that you still suffer today, because 1994 didn't stop the pain.
No.
Actually, a few years ago, we still buried people that had died in the 80s. There are still people who are lying all over the country and in far-flung lands that we still have not buried or even found, for that matter. So how are we expected to be different from what Mama Winnie was?
On that note, unfortunately, I have to leave it because it takes a lot more to speak about something like this. But I appreciate you coming in, your views, and I think so does South Africa. Our Minister of Public Service and Administration, Ayanda Dlodlo, talking to us about her personal views of the passing of the mother of our nation. Remember that her memorial, official memorial, is happening on Wednesday, and then, of course, the burial takes place on Saturday. Do stay tuned. All right, we're going to take a break. When we return, listeriosis under the spotlight. Do stay tuned.